Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King, and I'm back with part 4 of What If Naruto Was resurrected by his followers. Remember to get this one too. 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also guys, don't forget to go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto Was an Uchiha Bastard over on Anime King 3. Link will be down in the description, and yes, if you're new, I indeed have 3 more channels which I post What If on every single day. All the links will be down in the description, so go ahead, check them out, and yeah, enjoy. So without further ado or wasting any more time, how about we jump right into this brand new episode? Let us begin now, guys. So, to do a bit of a recap for the last part that we left off, Orochimaru went up against Naruto and Kyoka. As Naruto was able to sever his arm, it even slowed down his regeneration to a crawl. The Sannin was rather shocked. Naruto told him that the blade was special from day one. As the battle continued on, Orochimaru found himself having to use majority of his power to keep up with the two. Naruto wasn't physically able to keep up with him, but the blade that he possessed was so powerful. Kyoka, on the other hand, having been created to stand at his side along with the others in the past when you had people like Madara Uchiha and the others, Naruto created her to be a beast. However, as the battle progressed, Orochimaru noticed that he was getting hit and hit and hit. That was until he got sliced up and Naruto placed a seal on his forehead. The Sannin was confused. That is when Naruto revealed that he did not use his blade. Not even once. All of that was Kyoka. He was simply there as a distraction. So with that, they had the Sannin subdued. When Sakura woke up back, she found herself in the hollowed out tree as Naruto was there, telling her that he found her and Sasuke unconscious, given the state that Sasuke was in, as the curse mark was taking root. So with that, the sound for attack, Orochimaru earlier orders. He wanted to put Sasuke up against them to test just how much powerful the Uchiha will get with his mark. Sakura was the one to take them on as Naruto faked like he was injured to see just how much she would go, how far she would go. Granted, he wouldn't allow her to die because he needed her for the stage of the exam, and at the time being this was simply for fun. So with that, Sakura was able to hold her own until they actually started to truly fight back, showing that she was not on their level. However, she did gain a new perspective. She did realize that she had to be taking things serious from now on, otherwise, well, her life would be in danger every single second. As there was Rock Lee that came to intervene. After that, they made their way towards the tower. Naruto proceeded to retrieve one of the secret items that Kyoka had brought him, which led to a separate dimension inside the unknown as the door closed behind him. When the day finally came, Naruto was supposed to be facing off against Kiba, as Naruto went up against him. However, the problem was, Kiba did not stand a chance in hell. Many were shocked by Naruto's display, as he was thinking and almost choked the life out of Kiba. Kakashi was getting rather concerned about Naruto's, cryptic behavior. He's been acting unusual, strange, and the copy ninja was getting more and more worried. With that, some time passed, as Naruto ended up meeting Jiraiya. Having the man hear Naruto realize something during their conversation, not to mention with what he got from Orochimaru. Naruto wanted to kick himself, as he failed to realize that they put it in something everlasting. The Uzumakis were truly genius. Yes, they were. Not on his level, but their thinking process had surprised them. It seems that Hoshirama Senju would gather all the tail beasts and allow them to seal his power within the tail beasts, not a part of them but with them, to the point that it wouldn't even affect the user who become a Jinchuriki. As Naruto proceeded to his mindscape and unraveled the seal, there were thousands upon thousands of them. He created a powerful seal to handle the backlash, which he proceeded to remove, and a large portion of his power returned back to him. As Naruto realized that the remainder was with the other 8 tail beasts. A smile graced his features, but at the same time, he ended up signing the Toad summoning contract. Perhaps he did it on purpose just to see. However, the moment he did so, Jiraiya had been called to return there. The great elder told him a story that there was twice that the world almost came to an end, and the second one was closer than the first, and that was because of Satoru Uzumaki, and he was back. Jiraiya brought this information straight to Hiruzen, as Naruto being a Uzumaki brought up some rather questionable thoughts. After speaking with Kakashi, they became even more concerned, but they had to play this carefully. They couldn't simply do something without knowing the full extent of how powerful he's gotten. If this was truly him, if he even had a fraction of his own power, if he was able to isolate the power of the 9 tails that was inside of him, they were all doomed. The village that is. So they had to be careful. They were unaware that Naruto was spying on them with a tiny little summoning beetle. They were rather, well, crafty and secretive about their meeting, but Naruto was always 10 steps ahead. A smile graced his features as things was just getting fun actually. So yeah guys, basically let's play it off. You guys can switch across to the play for yourself. So this we jump right into this brand new episode. Let's begin this now guys. The warning had been stern. Extremely so. The great elder Toad believed that if this boy is allowed to continue, if he's allowed to regain the power that he once had, this time around, there would be absolutely no one, not a single soul within the elemental nation that would possess the power to stop him. Therefore, he had to be stopped. However, the chunin exams had appeared so quickly. Hiruzen, Jiraiya, and Kakashi were the small few that was aware of the danger that was right under their nose. Jiraiya spent the next few days hanging out with Naruto, pretending to train him, and everything seemed so fine. Jiraiya started to wonder if the Toad perhaps got his thoughts messed up. Naruto seemed to be nothing but a normal child. However, at the same time, given all the evidence that was placed forward, from what Kakashi had seen, the switch, the change, everything might link back to him being, well, the person that nearly ended the world as it was. There was a high chance that all of this was simply pretend, acting. But why? Why remain in the village if you were that person? With the possibility to regain such power, why pretend to be normal? It made no sense. Not even Hiruzen knew what the Uzumaki's did to his power. He had heard from his sensei, that being the second Kage, that Satoru could not be killed. They could not fully destroy him, so they had to simply seal his power away. The Uzumakis were able to split it and seal it away. However, His sensei had not given that information, believing that that simple past should rest. Hiruzen spent the remainder of the days searching through old documents, old files, things that were only to be seen by the Hokage, and finally, he came across something. A letter written from the second Kage. Despite the man saying what he said to Hiruzen at the time, it seems that the man had the foresight to be prepared just in case. Hiruzen was currently seated in his study as he unfolds said letter. To whoever is reading this, the world is perhaps in peril once again. And the wicked Uzumaki, Satoru Uzumaki, has arisen once again. A secret that was kept by the grand leaders that faced him on that day, to ensure that never again shall he be restored. A secret that would be kept until the very end. The power of Satoru Uzumaki was sealed within the tail beasts. The rest of the Uzumakis were able to isolate the power and make it a part of them without merging with them, knowing the danger that his consciousness might reignite through his own power. To whoever this might concern, immediately, you should isolate every single Jinchuriki and ensure that he doesn't come close to either of them. Because the danger that he poses is a danger that is cataclysmic, world-ending, nation-destructive abilities. As he read the words of Tobirama Senju, a man that was always serious when he was handling things, but the way he spoke about Satoru, Hiruzen himself had not been there up in front. However, the terrors of that battle had enough power to combine every single nation against one man and his disciples that were by his side. In the end, he only lost because of his arrogance. He was too cocky. So yes, having someone like that reuniting the world would end every single one of them. For the past few days that lead up to the finals, Naruto has not shown any signs. Anvus were constantly watching him, surveying him, and he seemed to be just normal. However, Hiruzen had to make a move, just to be sure. He would be the first to apologize to Naruto if he was wrong, but after the exam, they need to be 100% sure. And the only way to do that was to bring him towards Mount Miyaboku where the toads were, for them to analyze him themselves. Yes, perhaps somehow Naruto had the genes or blood of the man. Perhaps Uzumaki Kushina lineage linked somewhere in between. But he had to be sure after the exams. Until then, yes. When the big day finally arrived, everyone who has been preparing was fully prepared to participate. The Kazekage arrived. The man was mostly covered, his face obscured. As he sat down beside Hiruzen, he even joked about his old bones of walking all the way to the sand. So it was a good thing that the exam was kept here. Hiruzen kept things light and breezy as they spoke commonly. As everyone started to arrive, Hiruzen gazed focused down below as Naruto stepped upon the sand, gazing around. His hands were in his pockets. However, it was like he knew Hiruzen was looking at him as he gazed upwards. Hiruzen did not turn his gaze, simply watching Naruto, given the distance between them. He just looked at the boy, as Naruto turned his gaze and looked around, looking at all the people that were there. As all of them were gathered, Hiruzen got to his feet, as he started to give a speech about the exams, and why they were all here, and looking forward to the future of, well, the younger generation, as the others made their way for the first match to take place. It was Temaru and Shikamaru. After the first match came to an end, look, Naruto is up now, Ino told Sakura, who was worried because Sasuke was not here, as she wondered where he was. Not to mention he got the mark from the Sannin. She had been worried about him. After seeing what he did, after seeing that darkness inside of him, she had been scared. However, she was the one to calm him down and she believed that she could do it again. She decided though to cheer Naruto on as well. He was her teammate. He proceeded to make his way down there. He stood face to face with Neji. The proctor asked them if they were ready. The both of them nodded as he told them to begin. However, the battle did not start though. Neji looked towards Naruto with a look of disgust, like he wasn't even on his level. Haven't you realized that? It is your fate to lose to me today. Why bother showing up? Do you like to be humiliated? Neji asked. Naruto looked around. As he looked down and looked up, "Are you talking to me?" he said. "Who else would I be talking to?" said Neji. "Amusing," said Naruto. "You believe that you have a chance of winning today?" Neji was taken aback by that statement. "It seems there is no rather point of talking to you, because you're clearly delusional," said Neji. "Do you have any idea who I am? Do you have any idea what fate has set here today?" "Ah, so you're a man of fate, believing that everyone has a destiny that they must fulfill no matter what." Neji nodded his head. "You know, I used to think that way, but not so anymore because I transcended the natural concept of fate a long time ago. Well, not as I am now," said Naruto. Naruto's words were not exactly quiet as he spoke. However, the distance was too great, but Hiruzen was reading Naruto's lips. And after what he just said, the fear of what the toads had brought them was more concerning than ever. Naruto started to crack his neck and roll his arm. Neji had enough of this though. "Fine. If you wish to lose by my hands, then so be it." With that, Neji dashed forward, activating his Byakugan, intending on ending this match with one strike. Up in the stands, Hayashi Hyuga was watching. Seated beside him was Hanabi, as Hinata was also with her friends. Hinata had lost miserably to Neji, as he had aimed to even kill her, which was terrible. However, as she gazed down below, Hinata was worried. Something was different with Naruto. Hinata had a crush on him ever since, but recently she started to see signs that something was wrong. His eyes no longer filled with that warm, inviting look. There was a darkness inside of them that she's never seen before, but that darkness seemed to have only grown over time, and it scared her. Yes, it scared her greatly as she gazed downwards. The people started to voice their opinion. "It's over," they said. Many believing that this match would not last more than 2 minutes, as Neji charged towards Naruto. Saying the same was Hanabi Hyuga, the younger sister of Hinata, believing that Neji was cool, believing that he was one of the best around their age, that is. They hailed him as the prodigy of the clan. Yes, he was quite a special individual, so most people believed that this match was in his favor. However, the closer Neji got, the more he could see Naruto, and the more he could see Naruto, the more his body felt so strange. He felt stagnant, like he was slowing down, but he was not, which confused him greatly. Finally arriving, Neji strike, aiming towards Naruto's stomach area. As he was about to close every single point with this first strike and then beyond, it was just the beginning. However, Naruto grabbed his hand. Now that shocked him. But not just him, the people as well. Naruto grabbed Neji's wrist. Given the amount of speed that Neji moved with, casually grabbing his wrist was, well, not possible for someone like Naruto. Neji threw his other hand towards Naruto's face. Naruto then proceeded to grab it as well. He yanked Neji forward until their faces were inches away from one another, to the point that Neji could feel Naruto's breath. As I said to you, I've long since transcended fate a long time ago. Neji howled out in pain as Naruto snapped his wrist, causing Neji to stagger back in agonizing pain. The sheer fact that he could do that with such little effort was confusing a lot of people, and it was rather worrying as well. Neji staggered back, feeling the pain in his arms. The audience gasped as Naruto now stood in front of him. The ninjas were confused. The Jonin's eyes narrowed. What the hell? That was not normal speed. Naruto placed 2 fingers on Neji's forehead. And just like that, "You're dead," said Naruto. The mere fact that Naruto was able to draw a blade from under the coat that he was wearing so fast, many did not see until Neji started to leak blood. Naruto had split his throat open. Neji gripped at his throat, which was, well, something that he couldn't really do. It was fumbling all over, given that Naruto snapped his wrist. He collapsed down to the ground, but Naruto did not allow him time to suffer as he drove the blade straight through Neji's skull. Everyone was quiet. The entirety of Konoha was confused, as many believed that what they saw was simply an illusion. Sakura, eyes were wide, unblinking. She stood there, motionless. The rookies were shocked. Tenten got tears in her eyes immediately. Guy, eyes widened. Hiruzen immediately got to his feet as everyone looked down towards the scene. Naruto proceeded to turn his gaze towards the Kage's boot. "I'm bored of this," he said. "Let's begin, shall we?" The moment he said that, a signal was given from the Kazekage to another. The person did not question what just happened. Naruto's words did not echo across the stadium or anything. He spoke softly, but his words reached who they needed to reach. Surprised by the timing, explosions went off. Snakes came raining in the village, again due to cloud the people. Yes, problems started to arise immediately. Kakashi and Sasuke was just returning back. As they were off in the distance, they heard and they saw, so they started to race back towards the scene. Guy jumped down, followed by Tenten as well. As everyone jumped, who knew Naruto? Sakura making her way, confused and worried, not understanding why would Naruto do something like that. How was he even able to do something like that? Guy was angry, greatly so. However, he was interrupted by Kakashi. Kakashi noticed the blood, noticed Neji's corpse, taking his mind off the situation at hand. He immediately prepared himself as Naruto looked towards him and smirked. "Why are you trying to fight me? Can't you see there's an invasion going on?" "Hey, what the hell is going on?" Sasuke said, arriving until Naruto's hand rested on Sasuke's shoulder. They were all perplexed as Naruto's blade was at Sasuke's throat. "No, stop!" Kakashi said, raising a hand. "Come on now. Just a quick slice, and I can put him out of his misery." Sasuke was frozen, shocked, confused. "Kakashi, what the hell is going on?" said Guy. Seeing Kakashi quickly to turn against his own student made him believe that things were not as they seem. That's not Naruto. What do you mean I'm not Naruto? Of course I am. However, Kakashi was not buying it. Sharingan already on display. However, the problem was the village was being attacked. As Naruto merely smirked towards them, he raised one of his hands. The next moment, sand descended upon everyone there. Up in the contestant's booth, Gaara, what are you doing? Temari said. As Gaara's back was turned to her. But he just sent his sand out. She was confused, not understanding what was going on. He turned his gaze and faced her, and his eyes were hollow and empty. What was going on? As Gaara ride his sand cloud, going down, he landed in front of Naruto, right where Sasuke was. What the hell do you think you're doing? Sasuke said. Get your hand off me. Naruto chuckled and released the blade. What is this? Why do they want to attack you? What are you doing? Sasuke asked, looking at Naruto, who was supposed to be his teammate. I'm afraid there's a lot that you don't know, said Naruto. But there is no need to worry. I do not desire your death. In fact, I think you're going to be important if you survive, Naruto said, walking. However, Guy, furious about his student's death, descended upon Naruto. As he seemed like he was about to kick Naruto's head clean off. Before he could though, Guy was blocked by an arm, as Kyoka was now in between them. A few minutes earlier, when the Hokage's boot went up in smoke, Hiruzen jumped, and so did the Kazekage. What is the meaning of this? Hiruzen said, seeing the rather questionable actions of the man that he was now facing. The Sound Four revealed himself and surrounded the group. However, ripping off the Kazekage robes was Kyoka. The Sound Four was confused. I'm sure you're all wondering what is going on. Well, it's simple. Orochimaru is dead. Now that took the wind out of their sail, as they didn't understand what the hell was going on. Kyoka then proceeded to flash away, heading straight towards Naruto. The Sound Four immediately moved, flashing away as well. Without Orochimaru, their chances of defeating the Hokage dropped significantly, and they could not fight Hiruzen Sarutobi. They would die. There was no doubt about that. So they moved immediately. Hiruzen's gaze widened as he looked down. Jiraiya was busy taking on the snakes. Immediately he raced, jumping down and jumping towards where Naruto was. To the original time, as Kyoka blocked Guy, she grabbed his ankle and swung him away. Guy cursed as the force sent him into the railing. He flipped at the last moment though and clutched on. Such monstrous strength, Guy thought as he gazed down below. The Anvus and Hiruzen landed. Naruto, what the hell are you doing? Hiruzen asked. Come on now. I know that you know who I am, but you can still call me Naruto. I like the new name. New name, new me, he said. So it is you, Satoru Uzumaki. The Anvus immediately froze up. That name was like the plague itself, a name that was not spoken by many, but it was known of. But that was impossible. No, it can't be. They heard stories. Almost all Anvu members knew the stories. The tales of Satoru was even told as nightmares, about the man that almost ended the world, almost destroyed the shinobi world as it was. So yes, to hear that, it was rather frightening. Temari and Kankuro landed. What have you done to my brother? Said Temari. Oh, him. Well, I had a little conversation with Gaara before he left to your village. Well, conversation is not the right word. I messed with his subconscious, messed with his mind, and messed with his seal. In the process, I was able to gain something that I, needed. Hiruzen kept his mouth shut, as Naruto did not speak about the power that he retrieved from Gaara. Hiruzen believed that he was talking about, which meant perhaps he did not know that they know where the power was located. That meant they still had a chance to stop him. So that was good. He told the Anvus to immediately surround him with a signal of his hand. They could not allow him to leave. As Naruto looked towards Gaara with a smirk on his face, the next moment sand exploded out, causing catastrophic destruction for the arena, as everyone was scampering to move around. Naruto turned his gaze towards Hiruzen. The sand did not betray you. Orochimaru was simply manipulating them. But as you can see, he's dead now. I killed him, said Naruto. Hiruzen had no idea why Naruto was telling him that, as he raced to stop him from leaving. However, Naruto plunged his hand within Gaara's gut. His hand was no longer solid, as it seemed to be spectral, made from a substance of energy. Gaara started to wince in pain. The next moment, Naruto ripped his hand out as Gaara collapsed on the ground. As the group raced to take Naruto down, however, Kyoka wrapped her arm around him and they vanished. Hiruzen paused, the others paused. Tenten, still with tears in her eyes, her blade out, one of her many weapons, but he was gone. She raced towards Neji's body on the ground, his corpse. Sasuke stood there rather confused about the whole thing. Kakashi cursed to find out that it was actually truthful. Hiruzen immediately snapped back into play, barking out orders. As bleak as that was, they still had to protect the village. The Sand Ninjas had no idea that they were working for someone that did not care if they lived or died. The Sound Ninjas, they were screwed. So yes, watching within the shadows was Kabuto Yakushi, who immediately got to work, spreading the news for them to flee. He made sure that the Sound Four get out of here safe. As he overheard the entire conversation and the name that was dropped, a very terrifying name from the past that almost ended the shinobi world as they knew it. As the invasion did not last for much longer, the news spread to the Sand Ninjas about them being manipulated and tricked. The Sound Ninjas started to flee after Kabuto started to spread said word, but those that remained, those that weren't aware, got crushed by Konoha. The Sand, seeming to know the repercussions of what would follow, proceeded to, help. Yes, they started to help. Granted, they had not taken any lives just yet, so perhaps there was still a chance of forgiveness. However, for the time being, the world had to be aware. Satoru Uzumaki was alive. Yes, he was alive. Time skip. It wasn't hard to track down the tail beasts. 30% of his strength had been recovered after his soul had fully merged with his form. 10% of his original strength had been recovered. He got another 10 from the Nine Tails and another 10 from the One Tails. It was easy to subdue Gaara, put him to sleep and simply place a seal on his subconscious which would allow him to control him when the time was necessary. However, Naruto no longer needed him, so he ripped the One Tails out of him, absorbing the power within himself. It was not something that he was currently using at his disposal. He was simply keeping it within a separate dimension. He used the two tail beasts at his disposal to create a seal that would be able to track the other tail beasts. Throughout that time, Kyoka had been pretending to be Orochimaru, For what means? Well, Naruto already had a plan with that area, as there was a lot that he was doing after all. It would have been much easier to simply call off the invasion. However, he needed for Konoha to be attacked. He needed to stir up a bit of problem. Yes, he did. And while that was going on, while they were handling that, Naruto and Kage had left the village once and for all. His entertainment there was done. He got the information that he needed about how exactly he was going to reunite with his lost power. So there was no need for him to be there anymore. At the moment, both him and Kage was standing within a large forest area. A stream was nearby as he made his way and gazed down towards his reflection. As he smiled, Kage was scanning around. As her gaze focused off into the far distance, "I found him," she said. "Shall I retrieve him?" "No. This one is mine," said Naruto. "I haven't had a decent fight in such a long time." As Naruto started to walk, making his way. Meanwhile, residing within the forest, away from the people, simply wanting to be alone, given all the problems that was in the past. He just wanted to be left alone, to not be bothered, to not be hassled. It was a man known as Utakata. He was a holder of the six-tailed beast, a very powerful tailed beast, a power that he could control. Utakata felt something as he turned his gaze to see. A young boy, no older than 13, emerged out of the foliage. Now this caught him off guard, because no one was supposed to be out here. So yes, he was gravely confused on why he was here. Why was a child out here? "You must be the six tails holder." Immediately his eyes narrowed dangerously, hearing that leave the boy's mouth. As Naruto stood there calmly, his hands in his pockets, as he proceeded to remove them, his gaze focused on Utakata. "Don't be shy. I am going to kill you because extracting the beast will end your life. I'm saying don't be shy because I know some people tend to run away." Utakata turned towards Naruto fully. "Are you sure that you want to do this? You're just a child. Are you sure that you want to waste your life? Because I will not be held responsible for what is about to happen," he said. "I just want to be left alone." "I'm sure," said Naruto. "So how about we have some fun?" With that, Naruto raised his hand and placed it behind him. His sword simply materialized. However, it was within the sheet. Utakata was confused. One moment he was looking at the kid across from him, around 20 feet, and the next moment, Naruto was 1 feet away from him. Naruto swung said blade. Utakata immediately blocked it with a pipe. Yes, a pipe that was in his hand. A specialized pipe. It was strong. The two of them clashed. The thing was, Naruto had not removed the blade from the sheet, because he simply could not. They disengaged before they engaged once again, clashing. The sheath of the blade was undisturbed, untouched, despite the numerous physical blows. Naruto could not remove the sheath because, well, this was his most powerful blade. Something that he was tricking Orochimaru to believe that he was using against him. But it was a lie. It had multiple names, but his favorite was the end. Because those who laid their eyes on this blade always met their end in a rather miserable way. And the amount of power that he currently has at the moment, it wouldn't allow him to open it. A mere human cannot open this blade. Their mind was too weak. It would collapse in on itself. Their mind would strain and break, unable to be fully recovered. They would surely be brain dead. The weapon was not just a weapon that was forged by normal hands. You have to understand, within the past, Naruto was able to transcend life itself, as he was able to breathe life. He controlled life and death. He bent space. He twisted time. He was a god. There was no doubt about that. And in doing so, he crafted the most powerfulest weapon not just in this world but beyond. And there it lies. But it was too powerful for him to even think of opening it now. It would be severely bad not just for him but everything in a rather wide radius. So Naruto was simply clashing with the hilt of said blade and the sheath as well. If he had brought this blade with him to the battlefield when he faced off against the entire world, well, they would have all been dead. All of the Kages that faced him, all of the high-level shinobis would have been slaughtered right there and then. And with them killed, it would have been easy to take over everything else. But once again, he was too cocky, and that got the better of him. However, not this time. Reaching behind him, as Utakata jumped forward, having already released several of his bubble technique, Naruto threw a powder. Confusion graced Utakata features, but immediately sensing danger he jumped away, only for said powder to move like it was attracted to him. And it simply replicated his own technique. It blew up like a bubble right across from him. It was cataclysmic as it ruptured through the island that they were on. It was large. Said powder was, as you can see, not normal powder. It was simply something of Naruto creation. A technique that he get hit with, he could simply replicate it as a substance source. It doesn't matter the complexity. It doesn't matter the Kekigenkai. He could replicate anything with that powder. In his heyday, he had created some genius things that would shock the world right now. But most of his creations were buried along with him back then. But not anymore. Utakata raged as he was overtaken by the power of the six tails. Immediately he threw his tails out. They started to rip the area apart. Naruto twist, duck, and flipped away. He landed before jumping as the ground was ripped to sunders. However, it was a trick. 3 of the tails got him in the center. The other 3 were above him. They were about to combine and squash him in the center. Until Naruto smirked as white chains erupted from his palm. They stabbed into each of the tails. However, what followed was like purification. The corrupted, corrosive chakra of the 6 tails seemed to be burning away. Immediately the tails were pulled back. However, the chains followed and wrapped around the beast. Until the body of the 6 tails started to change. It became purple, acidic. It dashed across after twisting itself much smaller out of Naruto's grasp. It raced towards him, its hand out to rip. His chest opened as Naruto turned to smile at the thing. Inches away were the claws, ready to gut him. However, the beast was suspended in mid-air. As Naruto then looked down, massive white spikes, similar to the chain, had erupted from the ground. It impaled the 6 tails all over. There was not a space left on its body. The thing howled out in agonizing pain as Naruto stepped forward, his hand glowing the same white as the chain. He placed it on the thing's head before he gripped and ripped. The next moment, Utakata returned back to his human form. The spikes proceeded to vanish as he collapsed, bleeding heavily, like he was about to die anytime soon. That is when Naruto plunged a spectral arm within his chest and reached around. Utakata writhed in agony on the ground. "Don't worry," said Naruto. "I'm almost done." As he searched, when he located what he was looking for, black veins ran up Naruto's arm and ran into him. His eyes glowed ominously. His power surged. He then proceeded to rip the 6 tails right out of Utakata. As the man died almost immediately, jumping down from her perch. As Kyoka made her way over towards him, "Another one down," said Naruto. Time skip. Both Naruto and Kyoka stood at the front of the ocean, gazing down below. "It will take some time before the power fully resurfaces," said Naruto, as he placed his hand down in the water. "We have company," she said. Turning his gaze, Naruto saw Kirin ninjas racing down towards him. There were 3 of them, scouts, that were protecting the area. They landed and focused their gaze on her, seemingly her being the adult. "Identify yourself," the one in the center spoke up, as Naruto gazed over his shoulder. "Kill 2, leave 1, he said. The moment the words left his mouth, they tried to arm themselves, but it was already over. The last remaining survivor turned, meeting Kyoka's gaze. He collapsed and tried to back away in fear, only to bump into Naruto. "Don't worry," said Naruto. "I'm not gonna kill you, so run along," he said. The ninja got to his feet, hesitantly stepping back. As the 2 started to walk away, they simply left, and he put up not a fight, knowing that it would end in his demise. Time skip. The right Kage opened the letter that was addressed with the title Satoru Uzumaki. Immediately as he saw that name, it brought vague memories of the past. Memories that were told to him by his father, who was on the battlefield at the time. He knew the depths and things that his father had told him. His father was a very proud, powerful man who hold no bearings to any other shinobi. However, that was a man that his father was even afraid to go up against, showing the depths that shinobi was able to gather if it scared the likes of his father. And now, after all these years, he was back. At the same time, word reached the Land of Stone. Oniki was caught off guard. The deciphers checked, making sure that there wasn't any traps. For Konoha to be sending him a message, this must be big, extremely so, bigger than anyone would ever expect. This had to be grand as he opened it. At Kiri, Mei, the Tissue Kage, as she had taken the title after the demise of the previous tyrant Yagura, opened the letter and raised an eyebrow. "Satoru," she said. Time skip. Jiraiya was walking through the desolate land that was once the land of waterfall. The survivors were there, the remaining ninjas. Jiraiya gazed upwards. The tree that was prominent for being the largest tree within the elemental nation. Seeing that Jiraiya has been here before, the land of waterfall was the only other village that wasn't a great nation that possessed a tailed beast due to an incident in the first Hokage era. And now, the place was still a mess. Naruto had descended upon this place. It seems like his strength had skyrocketed since they last came across him. Looking at this place, looking at the bodies that were still being moved, the Sannin felt a gut-wrenching pain. This was his fault. There was no doubt about that. He allowed his feelings for the past, allowed his feelings for his final wish, despite not it being successful, to protect Kushina and Minato's son, got in his way, and now they were all screwed. He allowed a monster to go through. He allowed a monster to survive, and look what he's done. Innocent people that did not deserve this. He slaughtered them. He wiped out a good portion of the population here. And after hearing what they said, he did so just because he wanted to. No other reason. Was this a way to send a message? to prove that he was that powerful, to show the other nations that they could not stop him. The Sanin wasn't sure what or why he was doing this. He could have easily gotten the tail beast if he wanted to. From the stories that Jiraiya was told how things pan out, and yet he purposely dragged things out just to kill these people. It seems like they were dealing with a special kind of monster that the world has faced before, but now in this time, the world has to face it once again. A meeting was going to be taking place. A meeting that has not happened since the founding of the Grand Elemental Nation. Since the true founding of the villages where everyone was starting to truly combine, where a meeting was given to distribute the tail beasts, where the Hokage Hoshirama Senju spoke, where the leaders all spoke together about their next action, revolving Satoru as well. They had prayed that this day would never come, that the younger generation would never have to face an evil like this, as they fear that there would be no one around that would be able to stop him. And at the rate that he was going, it seems like that was correct. The Land of Iron, a large, snowy place filled with samurais, was held as a neutral spot where none of the other villages will fight on. That is where Hiruzen Sarutobi found himself. He was not alone. Arriving, given what recently happened to the Sand Village, so much, they needed a representative. Baki, the right-hand man of the Kazekage, was the one that was given the, title for the time being. Because they were in a rather weak position. They lost their Jinchuriki. Most of their ninjas were injured and some had died during the attack. Right now they were the most vulnerable and the weakest. They could be left behind to plunder within this new scary era of Satoru being back. So they needed to show that they were with the regime. They needed to show that they were doing what they could by attending this meeting. The meeting was rushed as they had to speak immediately. Hiruzen already classified in his letters what they needed to do. As much as the other nations did not like each other, as much as it was hard for them to even get along with each other, they truly understand the testament of this man. The tales about his strength that has been passed down has put many of their best to shame. So, overlooking this like it was nothing, it was just going to lead to countless death and suffering. So they had to cut their squabble, put aside their differences for now, and save the goddamn world. As the Kages arrived, Hiruzen was accompanied by 2 out of the 3 of the older generation of the Inoshiko Cho, without the Cho that is. As they were there, the Raikage arrived. Behind him were his guards, who look rather young in comparison. However, they were more than prepared and ready. A young man known as C and another one known as Darui. As for the Tishikage, he was accompanied by 2 stone ninjas who had their face obscured, as their face was not being shown. As for Mei Terumi, Ayo, a man with an eye patch, and another that had a bandana wrapped around his head that came down toward his face and curved around his eyes, as there was a special modification that allowed him to see, was standing there. Baki was covered by 2 sand ninjas. Given the climate there at the sand, and how most ninjas carry themselves, it was hard to identify them. Mifune, the leader of the Land of Iron, the leader of the samurais, cleared his throat and spoke. He wanted to welcome them all here. However, he understood the urgency of this meeting, having received letter from Hiruzen. All of them placed their hat down, ready to discuss what they needed to discuss. They had to get straight to business. Mifune handed the reins over to Hiruzen. He was the one that called this meeting. I know that every single one of you in this room is aware of the name Satoru Uzumaki, the one who almost guaranteed that our way of living wouldn't have existed if he had his way. He has been revived. All of them narrowing their gaze. I am not sure the true proceedings of how this was able to take place. However, he has revived himself through a young Uzumaki boy and is going by the name Naruto Uzumaki. This has been confirmed by the Toads who were there on that day. The great elder Toad who was there to witness that chaotic fight between him and the world. I will not sugarcoat this, he said. The Uzumaki boy was a holder of the 9 tails, and Satoru used that to regain a portion of his power. They were all quiet, willing to hear what he had to say in full. I found message left behind by the second Kage, which relate in how they were able to store his power away. Each and every one of the tail beasts has a fraction of his power sealed within them. He's hunting down the tail beasts. Before this meeting, I got word that the land of waterfall has been attacked. Countless was slaughtered, and the 7-tailed Jinchuriki is dead. I know that we all have our differences against one another. I know that we all have it hard to trust one another in the face of diversity and internal conflicts, but this is not the time for that right now. We have to put aside our differences and ensure that he does not get what he desires, because if he does, life as we know it will never be the same ever again. And most of us will not make it through to see what that life is. I'm sure that many of you were confused why. That part in my letter why I specifically inform you to hide the Jinchurikis. Well, that is the reason. Problem, Hokage Dano. Mei spoke as they turned towards her. It was a few hours after I got the letter. 2 of my shinobis was killed, and one of them came back to report what happened. I led a search to try to find the one who did this. Your letter concerned me to believe that he was responsible, and I found the body of one of my Jinchurikis, and he was no longer with us. The former Mizukage was slain. In doing so, the tail beast was destroyed. However, it will only be a matter of time before that power resurfaces once again. Given the recent action, I believe it will be a few years, but not for too long. So you're saying that this boy already got his hands on the 9 tails, the 7 tails, and the 6 tails, and the 1 tails as well. Baki spoke up. So he has all that power under his control. Yes, not only was he able to recover the portion of his power that was stripped away from him, he now has the tail beasts under his control. I'm sure I don't need to tell any of you the kind of craft that he was able to perform in the past, because I'm sure all of you have heard the history and the things that he was able to do. And him regaining his full strength is something we must try to avoid at all possible costs as we put an end to him. The right Kage was soaking all of this in. How was he able to get to the other tail beasts, to locate them so easily? He said his question targeted towards Hiruzen. He has an accomplice. I believe that she's the one that has been hunting down the tail beasts. So, there is a chance that he might know exactly where they were before. That is why my letter specifically told you to make sure this area is new. Well, we have to ensure that he doesn't come anywhere close to right, Kage said, surprising many by how he was being so cooperative. I have a place where the Jinjulikis can hide, and you will never find them. So you expect us to hand the remainder of the Jinjulikis over to you, the teacher Kage said. What is that supposed to mean, the right Kage said. You know exactly what it means. The both of them seem to be getting into an argument, but Hiruzen slammed his hand on the table. Damn it! This is no time for that, he said. You don't trust each other, fine, but this is for our people, our villages, the innocent people that will lose their life if this is allowed to happen. We can't afford to be worrying about petty, meaningless squabble right now, he said. Mifune agreed with him, as they need to understand that the fate of the world was much more important than squabbles they might have in the past. And they all realized that. They needed to isolate the Jinjulikis away. Fine, only he said. Even if we do accomplish this, how exactly are we going to stop him? In the past, the Uzumakis were here to seal away his power. How are we going to replicate that feat? He's weaker, Hiruzen said. Much weaker than he once was. And the Great Elder told believe that, in the state that he's in, he can be completely destroyed, never to be reformed ever again. That is why we have to strike now to ensure that he doesn't get any stronger. Hiruzen was cut off by an explosion. The guards descended in front of their leaders immediately. What is that? They said, turning towards Mifune. I don't know, he said, looking around. The explosion came out of nowhere. They sensed nothing. That is when a samurai came, running through the door. Lord Mifune, he was cut off as a blade pierced through his chest. A strange golden blade that completely disappeared a moment later. Am I too late? As all of them turned their gaze towards him. But guys, if you in subscribe right here, if you want to see next person do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace, guys.